Today is kind of an exciting video for me as well as I hope for you, because I'm going to get to see something that I haven't seen before up close. It's time to work my cows and my calves. It's a little bit later in the season than I had hoped, but we had a lot of rain and a lot of guys just weren't able to help. So I found somebody who came recommended. I've never met them before, but the interesting thing is he uses dogs to help him wrangle the calves and the cows into the corral. I've heard about this. I've never seen it before, so I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully my cows won't get too crazy, but you know, they're already skittish, so anything we can do to get them in the corral is good for me because otherwise it's really hard. They run for the hills and you can't catch them, and then you have to wait another day to try and trick them in the corral, and that presents its own set of challenges. So hopefully we have a lot of success today, but it's a new one for me, and I thought you all might appreciate seeing a video. So with that said, let's go check it out. All right, how are you?
Good.
Cameron, nice to meet you.
How are you, sir?
All right, how are you?
Devin.
Nice to meet you both.
Yes, sir.
Memo is here with us. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of how you started with the dogs and how that works out? How do you train them?
They just bred to do it.
Yeah?
Bred to do it, yes, sir. They kind of start, you put them out there and they kind of start their self.
Do you whistle them to go in different directions, or how do they?
No, sir. Hell, most of the time I'm just barely struggling to keep a handle on them at all.
But they're good at, they know what to do in terms of getting those cows wrangled and get them in the corral, and
Yes,
awesome.
sir. Yes,
All right,
sir.
well, let's go ahead and take a trip back there then.
Sounds good.
Having high hopes for a successful day, we headed to the back. I had moved my cows to the back pasture a few days prior. That way we wouldn't have to spend a lot of time trying to locate them, and the cows wouldn't be restless when approached. Having entered the back pasture, I explained that it would be best to leave the truck and trailer behind. Once Memo and I were able to put eyes on the cows, we would let them know so they could start making their way on horseback with the dogs. Fortunately, Memo and I didn't have to search very long, as we found the entire herd calmly resting under a large shade tree.
So the cows are up here in front of us under a tree, which is great. We didn't want to bring the trailer all the way up here because it makes a lot of noise, and the cows know that sound and they'll spook and they'll run for the tree lines. To avoid that, we came up here with my Ranger, which the cows are used to seeing all the time. They're used to seeing that when they're going to get fed, so they don't panic. And Cameron and Devin are going to be coming up here in a minute with the dogs. We'll see what the dogs do to get these cows wrangled up and over into the cattle pens.
At this point, I had no idea what to expect, especially given Cameron's comments back at the house, so I was really surprised to see the dogs calmly walking next to Cameron and Devin on horseback. And then one of the guys gave a command and off they went. They completely ignored Memo and me and made a beeline for the cows. They clearly know what their job is, and they got straight to it. Because I have never used dogs to work these cows before, you will notice that they are angry at first and even try to go after the dogs. They also end up circling the wagon, so to speak, by forming a tight ball. This is an instinctual behavior that makes it easier to move the herd where you want them, which is why using cattle dogs is so important to begin with. If the guys had just approached on horseback, the cows would have likely spread out and run in different directions, which is not ideal. While the dogs continued circling the herd, Devin came over to discuss the best way to get the cows into the pens. Rather than trying to explain my setup, Cameron decided to ride over to the corral to make sure the gates were open so that they could easily trap the cattle at the end.
So how long you been doing this, Devin?
Since I could ride, so pretty good while.
And do you have any dogs in the hunt, so to speak?
Yeah, these four are mine, and we left some ahead at the trailer in case we need some extras.
So what is your process for getting them trained? I mean, obviously they have an instinct to go after the cattle, but what is the trick to getting them to circle them like they do?
Oh, it's just kind of bred into them. They either will or they won't.
And what is the breed that you have?
These are Blackmouth Cur and Catahoula Cross.
Have you ever had any that didn't hunt and you had to take them out of the rotation?
I've had pretty good luck, but yes, sir, you kind of got to cull through them like anything, but I've had pretty good luck so far with this line.
And how old are the dogs?
I think the oldest one in here is probably 6, and then probably 4, 3, and one's just about 1.5 years old. She's just kind of starting.
So she's learning.
Yes, sir.
Having successfully rounded up the cows, Devin called them off for a little bit so that they could cool down under a shade tree. You will notice that the cows remain in a tight group, which is exactly what you want to happen. After a well-deserved rest, it was time to start moving the cows toward the corral. And as you can see, it was an easy process with the dog's help. One interesting thing I noticed is that the guys are adept at opening and closing gates while on horseback. I guess you have to be when you're working in corrals all day long. While most of the herd walked into the corral with no issue, you see here that one cow turned to run away. Now you know why having the dogs as helpers is so important.
And that is how you move a bunch of ornery cows and calves where you want them. That worked out really well. I can't believe how well that worked out. Now the fun stops and the work begins, and these guys are going to help me work these cows and calves, so let's go ahead and get after it.
As you can see in the video, the guys not only use horses to help corral the herd, they also cut or separate the cows from the calves while on horseback. This is safer than working the animals on foot because cows are less wary of a horse than a human, so they don't get aggravated or spook. That doesn't mean that you don't occasionally get an ornery cow-calf pair that doesn't want to separate easily, as you see here. But with a little persistence, a good horse, and great cowboying skills, they can usually be separated because calves are more prone to freezing when scared as opposed to running like their mamas. I also want to point out a few things about my corral. First, you will notice that the gates have solid bases. This is to prevent the cows and calves from seeing each other when separated, which would make them restless. Also, the latching bolt, which you see here, is made of thick rebar and sits vertically at an angle instead of horizontally. This is to allow someone to easily grab the bolt and set it, while the weight and angle prevent it from coming unlatched should an angry cow start banging on the gate. With the cows successfully separated from the calves, it was time to prepare the meds.
So what are we giving them today?
Virus Shield 6 and some 8-way. Take care of any respiratory issues and black leg.
Is it ever too late to work calves?
The only thing is if they get too big, you don't want to cut them, they bleed a little bit more. But as far as just working them now, heck, a lot of times we'll give them a second dose. If they're not ready to sell, we'll give them a second dose of this sometimes.
Those dogs work great. A little tub in there with some water, huh? I bet.
With the vaccines preloaded into separate syringes, Cameron also grabbed the ivermectin pour-on liquid, which is what you see there in blue. First, the guys moved the calves into the U-shaped chute around the outside of the corral. They did this so the calves would be ready to move down the chute in small groups. The guys also needed to move the rest of the herd into the side where the calves had been. That way, once the calves are worked, they can be turned out in the pen that the cows were previously occupying. As you can see in the video, the guys didn't need to jump back on their horses because they knew the cows would naturally want to move away from them, thereby posing little danger. With a turnout pen ready to go, Cameron and Devin grabbed an empty water trough to serve as a makeshift table. You will notice that the guys walked behind the calves inside the chute itself. This is so they can push the calves to the front of the chute to prevent them from moving or turning around. They then walk back, grab another couple of calves, and repeat the process. Now, for those of you who are squeamish, you might want to fast forward through this next part, but I wanted to show you how bull calves are typically castrated in the field. Some of you may ask why bull calves should be castrated at all. The simple answer is to prevent reproduction and improve calf marketability later. There are also non-surgical methods of castration, as I showed in one of my prior videos, but the end result is the same. Bull calves are turned into steer calves for management purposes. You will also notice that each bull calf stays perfectly still while Devin performs the castration procedure. This is because Cameron grabs each bull calf by the tail and bends it backward, temporarily immobilizing the calf. This is an important step in making sure the procedure is done quickly and safely. To minimize stress to the calves, Cameron and Devin work swiftly. This is why it is imperative to have everything within arm's reach, as well as have the vaccines preloaded into the syringes. Eight calves down and only 2 more bull calves to go. Here you can clearly see Cameron bending the bull calf's tail toward its spine, effectively immobilizing it while Devin completes the procedure. While bull calves can be castrated at any time, ideally the procedure should be done as soon as possible. The older the calf is, the more susceptible it is to excess bleeding, stress-related weight loss, and illness. You may also wonder why I ear notch my calves. The reason is that it helps me quickly identify them should they escape onto a neighboring property. With the hard part over, all that was left to do was spray the calves with ivermectin. As I mentioned before, calves generally tend to freeze when scared, so it isn't too difficult to push them into a corner for application of the spray. For the mature cows, however, it is best to spray them in the chute, as they are skittish and more unpredictable out in the open. With the spray applied, it was time to reunite the mamas with their babies.
Cows and calves worked and wormed. Great job, guys.
Pretty good.
Thank you. So there you have it, all in a day's work. Cameron and Devin, thank you. That was fantastic. You guys really know what you're doing, and I will continue to use you all in the future. So glad that I got my cows and my calves worked for the season. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, smash that like button and let me know what you think about this video in the comment section. If there's something else you'd like to see in the future, happy to see if I can make that happen. So until then, thanks for watching and take care. If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up below. You can also check out one of my other videos here, and stay up to date by subscribing to my YouTube channel right here. Until next time, I'll see you on the ranch.